We're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil because we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground.
Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves. Does it? But production collapsed under corruption, mismanagement, and political repression that was prior to Nicolas Maduro. We have to go back to Hugo Chavez for that. The backlash entirely predictable. The far left rushes to defend a socialist strongman. You know the No Kings protest? Well, they love a king because their king has been deposed. While Venezuelan exiles celebrate accountability and the promise of freedom, ideology always tells you where people land and what they protest for. The bottom line, this wasn't nation building. It was about energy security, regional stability, and reasserting hemispheric control. So in the intro, and we've heard regurgitated over and over and over and over again since early Saturday, world's largest oil reserves in Venezuela. No.
Yeah, not so much. I mean, there's a lot of hot takes over the weekend that are a hot pile of you-know-what. Because if you look at it, let me ask you this question. If you could go back in time and play poker with Hugo Chavez, would you trust him? Absolutely not. And he's the one that raised that reserve number to $303 billion. It was about $50 to $80 billion before that. So first things first, that headline number, completely wrong, not factual whatsoever. Second thing.
So can we get rid of that graphic?
Yeah, second thing.
But doesn't Venezuela have a lot of oil reserves? I mean, maybe it's not the biggest, but it's
the
pretty big, right?
U.S. conventional and unconventional has 200 billion barrels. So we have
more. It's a lot. It might just not be the most.
Now, I'm just correcting the record because I've heard a lot of stuff over the weekend that nobody knows because it's been under control of socialists for a quarter of a century.
What's another
and those numbers were inflated, to your point,
right? They're self-reported
by
to OPEC.
Hugo Chavez. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're self-reported to OPEC. So who trusts self-reporting organizations? You shouldn't, right? Trust but verify. The other thing is it's a heavy crude, very heavy, almost pavement that hasn't dried. It's so thick. It's hard to refine, hard to process. It commands a discount. People that want to refine it have to actually pay $7 to $10 less for it. Otherwise, the economics don't work. The other thing is, like you pointed out, this entire industry in Venezuela has been left to decay. It's like finding the old Cadillac that's been sitting in the yard for 20 years. And yeah, it's got good bones, but it's going to take a lot of work to revive that. So there's no immediate impact to supply. There's not going to be a glut. There were people out predicting that oil would open today below 50. Not a chance. Then the whole Permian's not profitable at $50 a barrel. So we're going to find new equilibrium. I think long term, as Edward was saying, this is a very strong benefit to the United States, energy security, independence, another provider, and it takes some supply away from China. That's my thoughts.
Everyone excited for our weight loss drug? Let's do it. Jumping today, you're up more than 4 and about 1/4%. So last month, the Wegovy pill was regulatory approved, and today it hits the market. Lou, quickly, we come to you on this because we've talked about if there's more maybe acceptance of a pill versus an injectable. Novo is, of course, the first out, but Eli Lilly, which you've been bullish on, should get a pill any coming months now. How do you think about all of this?
Yeah, patient compliance is always an issue with medicine and prescriptions. I think the pill makes it easier. It also makes maintenance easier. You do a regimen on the shots and then move to the pill. But I would say this. I'm a Eli Lilly shareholder. Novo Nordisk is a value trap. This is a stock that everyone's staring at and saying, look, this is really cheap, trading 14 times earnings. They were the first to market, but they're getting passed by Eli Lilly because Eli Lilly's drugs have superior science. They target more than one receptor. They'll also have a pill out on market sometime this year, and they also have a pipeline that is much more diverse and strong. So I'd say in a two-horse race, I'm betting on Eli Lilly over Novo Nordisk, although in this market that is stretched in valuations, Novo is attracting a lot of value investors.
So the president talked about how the federal government was going to supplement some of these drugs for lower income Americans. Does that include the pill? Because they were talking about the shot, but does that include?
It should in time, but Novo Nordisk is also, their patent expires in China soon, so they're starting to preempt that and front run it by offering lower prices. Eli Lilly has further patent extension, but I think you're going to see prices come down. Volumes are going to keep going up significantly. I mean, these are drugs that sell $40 to $40 billion a year.
So prices and BMI all coming down.
Yeah, same time.
Everything.
New year, new me.
I don't care. Just have a good argument for what you believe, and no one can come to the conclusion that liberalism is better for humanity by the second
I
course.
named my firstborn after Ronald Reagan, so I kind of screwed her in life. She doesn't have a choice. She has to.
Yeah.
Is her name Reagan?
It is. It's really
Her
Reagan.
name's Ronald.
Yeah.
Jump in.
No, look, what surprises me,
gosh.
I mean, this is the first time I can say anything positive about Tim Walz, right? You did the right thing. You stepped aside. That being said, why are you leaving if nothing was wrong, right? So obviously, there's more here to it. My biggest concern with all this fraud is it's easily preventable. We have so much digitization and ways to track records and see who's showing up to do different things. How does this continue at such a massive scale? It's because there's too many people involved, right? And if we start digging in and providing transparency and shining light into all these government programs, we're going to find more and more fraud. But I think this is a necessary first step. I hope he gets the book thrown at him for everything that's done. If allegedly it's true and he had oversight of it, you're responsible. Everything rolls up to the top in a public company to the CEO. If you're governor, it's going to roll up to you too.
I'm doing a no-look pass over to Dagan on this, but I just want to make raise the question. Is it about the fact that government's not efficient enough and should be doing its job better, or is it just about the government's doing too much, it's too big, the pot of money is too huge, and crooks will find a way? Because I tend to think it's not about government needs to be more effective. I think government just needs to be smaller and do less. But quick last thought, Lou.
I think it's idiocy. I'm going to let you guys argue over constitutionality, although I agree with you. I'm a numbers guy. This is not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. You don't fix it by taxing more, trying to generate more revenue, because these billionaires, I'm sorry, they're not going to wait around for it. They're going to leave the state already. You have 200 billionaires in California. Just if one or two, a Jensen Huang leaves, that's $11 billion that you miss out on tax receipts. A small number can have a huge impact, and Californians get deeper and deeper in the hole.
Miami, owning real estate down there, physically, like from an infrastructure perspective, cannot handle that number of people. But what say y'all?
I agree with you. Financial centers are hard to uproot. I'd look at Silicon Valley, right? California's had the worst tax regime out of any state out there, especially for founders and innovators. Is Silicon Valley dead? Does the majority, overwhelming majority of 80 to 90% of venture funding go anywhere else? No, it goes there. It's not going to happen. I think you're going to see a flood of people that run Wall Street firms that still have interest here operating out of Miami, but I don't think you move the financial capital of the world anywhere else.
Maybe I disagree a little bit, because we've learned in COVID how fluid we all can be. And yes, it takes time. Doesn't mean that Austin or Miami are the financial capitals tomorrow. But I think over time we've learned with this remote force how easy it is to move. And then we're talking about a wealth tax in California. Companies have an easier time saying, I'm done and I'm going to walk. And I think what I like about this, I would never, it's hard to root against my city. I kind of do love it here most of the time, but money goes where it's treated best. And if this is what makes a big wake up call to have all of that money leave, I kind of like it, because it'll change the way people here think about being so anti-capitalist.
A litmus test along those lines will be the Dallas Stock Exchange. If anyone actually moves there and transacts there, that'll prove you're out. Otherwise, it's going to show that we stick to our traditional.
I'm just saying that money is mobile and people are, but I don't think it goes to Miami. And Oracle is moving from Austin to Nashville.
Yeah.
So lickety split.
We've seen other wealth managers. Nashville was a traditionally healthcare town. It's turning into a much more financial and tech town. But we saw this play out.
And bachelorette parties.
Yeah, and divorce parties. We've seen this pendulum swing back and forth significantly. Remember, it was like 10, 15 years ago, U.S. companies were making mergers overseas to change their tax jurisdiction. Yeah. It's going to happen. We do it on a national level. We do it on the international level. I think capital flows where it's treated best, but it's not going to, the majority is not going to uproot from New York and go to Miami.
It's federalism. It was the coolest thing the founders did in their structure of government. It created such healthy competition, economically, politically, you name it.
To your point, markets are forward thinking. They're looking at a boom in the economy. They're looking at high earnings, and they're probably shrugging some of this off. Though you could look at maybe oil prices and understand maybe there's a little bit of a risk premium today, but then long term, the market knows that we're all facing an oversupply of crude, and this would bring in additional oversupply, so maybe long-term bearish in terms of oil
I remember
prices.
when risk premiums were big.
But I think the counter on that, we think we're facing an oversupply, because remember, OPEC is self-reporting. The capacity, the sustainable capacity they have is not what they're projecting that it is. So I would argue that in the back half of 2026, you're going to see, if oil prices hang here in these mid to high 50s, you're going to see it increase because U.S. production is much bigger than it ever was. They're going to keep cutting down on production. Permian rig counts are down 30% last year. New wells drilled are down 20%. This is an economic imbalance that won't last that long, hanging out here at 55 to 57.
Venezuela is also not in the top 20 of world producers. What they even could bring to supply with this improved infrastructure, that takes a long time for those oil services to get online for the U.S. producers.
I'm not saying the stock market's thrilled America first, but it's disconnected because this isn't this big geopolitical risk. This is, as you've been saying, just an American first defense strategy and making sure that we don't have those adversaries directly in our backyard, and that we're trying to take better control over the critical rare earths that we need.
Yeah, I think everyone in the market is trying to figure out what's the short-term impact, when really this is completely long-term motivated. I mean, we talked about oil, securing more supplies there eventually. We talk about rare earths. China has 61% of the mining of rare earths and 91% of the refining. The U.S. in comparison is 9% and 1%. So the president, I think, is thinking much longer term than we're even thinking, which is much more like China, right? China thinks in decades and centuries. We've always thought in America in terms of midterms and presidential elections.
I don't have taxes on tips or overtime, but I know a lot of people in my building who work on that are excited for that. And so there's sort of this still perceived after tax income increase, maybe that'll come in the wave of a refund check in April.
Yeah, I think perception matters. We talked about this before in terms of personal consumption spending keeps going up, but consumer sentiment is in the tank. People are acting differently than they feel. I agree with David, though. The more impactful and more meaningful changes in the taxes come on the corporate side, which is really going to drive the economy and lead to things like rising real wages, which we need, all those things that will contribute to consumers having more take-home pay, being more willing to spend it, feeling better than they are right now. But I think it's more just, I don't want to say it's window dressing, but it's just messaging, and messaging matters. We've seen the Democrats really lead the way in that. So I think this is the right thing to be driving home. You're going to have more take-home pay unless you're in that top 0.1% based upon after-tax income. But it's really what happens on the corporate side that
can I just say something? The beauty of this is we from this vantage point, we can all talk like the tax cut. The 2017 tax cuts were always going to be there for us, right? Yes. But of course, if we ported ourselves back to back to 2024, there was a real question about whether those tax cuts would be extended.
To 24, not in 25. Those questions went away at about 1 a.m. on election night.
How much does the Fed meddle in short-term interest rates?
But
because inflation is not under control, and if you start cutting here, what does the long-term rate do, and how does that hammer valuations in the stock market?
Stimulate more economic growth. We need to see it materialize. I mean, look, everyone wants to simplify investing. I think the simplest thing is follow earnings, right? Consistently, stock prices ultimately follow earnings. If they're growing quarter over quarter, that stock price is going to trend in that direction. But to your point, at 23 times earnings, those earnings better be growing very aggressively if you're going to buy into those valuations to bring that valuation down. So you look at sectors across the S&P 500, right? Valuations are overstretched except for energy and healthcare on an absolute and relative basis. So those are two pockets of opportunity, I think, in a market where analysts are calling for a 15 to 17% growth in potential earnings this year, maybe in 2027.
It's like you read my 2026 paper, but you haven't even read it. So he's reading my mind here. I agree 100%. But I do think people need to be cautious. I don't think they should be wildly optimistic that everything's going to continue growing.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. You don't have very many people who want to be jolly and merry with you about Santa Claus rallies.
Your introduction
I'm a little bit
to the
more than
one.
that.
I mean, the Dow's only up 800 points, just hit 800 points, but, you know.
It's cautionary tale against indexing, right? I think you have to be opportunistic, and individual security selection matters more in a bull market.
Does 23 times earnings, high average, if the average is 20, but can you make the case that if AI is structurally changing this economy, that portends higher valuations because productivity that can come for that, or just a big structural shift? Or is that all baloney too?
It is baloney, but it's fair baloney. First of all, the average has been about 16.5 times for 30 or 40 years. So 23 is a meaningful premium. However, the AI argument for higher productivity, higher margins, I'm always going to be skeptical when the answer for why we should be, again, really, really bullish at high valuation is this time it's different. Because I've never in my adult lifetime or through my study of history seen that work out well. When we predict that this time it's just structurally different. So I'm much more Buffett-like in my approach on this, that when people start saying something structurally is changing everything, now people are willing to pay 23 times earnings, it's all going to work out. That scares me because it indicates to me a complacency about risk.
Lou, you talk about like a Sioux Falls, South Dakota, you talk about a Des Moines, Iowa, not big cities. But I think some of the most entrepreneurial people end up being attracted to those locations. They're not going there to take a job. They're going there to create a job, or that's what's happening there is entrepreneurship, creating new centers of economic growth. Am I wrong there? What do you think?
No, I don't disagree. And I think every city and locale needs those pioneers that attract capital with them or decide to move their businesses to create that job growth. 25 years ago, I got moved to the Midwest in Milwaukee for 6 months in the middle of the winter. So I don't think that was a fair proxy of what the Midwest is like, Milwaukee in the middle of winter. But I do think this is an important counter argument to all the stuff that we keep hearing about. New York should be super affordable for everyone. Everywhere does not need to be affordable. Right. The beauty of this country is that capital can be fluid and dynamic and go to places where it gets treated better. And you have to make a decision. To your point, Taylor, it's now easier to have a job somewhere else or to be portable and move where you think you're going to have a better quality of life.
And places where capital is fluid, people are fluid, people are mobile, and that's what we call a free country.